Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Poema podcast. I am James Prescott, your host. Welcome back to the show. It's really great to have you all back. And today we have a returning guest, and we're not talking about what we normally talk about. My friend Jenna DeWitt is back, and we're not talking about Taylor Swift. Welcome back, Jenna.
Hey, James, I make no promises here. I can work Taylor Swift at any conversation.
Oh yeah, I'm sure she'll come up at some point. Yeah, but the main focus of the conversation is not a Taylor Swift album.
Right.
Um, but there will be more of those, I'm absolutely certain. So keep your eyes out for those.
Yeah.
But today we're talking about a movie. And you know that on this podcast we like to talk about movies and fictional characters and stories that have deeper meaning. And today we're doing that with another movie, The Marvels, the MCU movie. It's the sequel to Captain Marvel. And we're talking about that today. And Jenna is a huge fan of this movie, and I watched it the other day, and I quite like it as well. There's a lot of really powerful themes in this movie that we're going to explore today. So welcome, Jenna, and just tell us, like, initially, like, what is it you love about this movie? Just if you could
Oh
sum
man,
it up.
I love so much about this. It is fun, it is cute, but it is also powerful, and it has some deep, deep messages without compromising any of its unashamed femininity. And I think that's something that we can all look toward is how you can have joy and fun and love and all those great things, but that also none of that means sacrificing depth and
Mm,
growth and
yeah,
messy, imperfect characters.
because there's three lead characters in this movie. Obviously, there's Carol Danvers, who's Captain Marvel, and
Hmm.
then there's Kamala, who is Miss Marvel,
Hmm.
from the TV, from the MCU show. She's a teenager who's got all these powers. And there's Captain Rambo as
Hmm.
well, who Carol was kind of the unofficial auntie for at the end of the first movie, and she was a little girl then, and then she grew up, and then she has powers as well. So it's those three. They're the three lead characters, and obviously the villain as well. The villain I thought was really cool in this movie. Actually, I
Hmm.
thought it was quite, because MCU don't have a good track record with villains, but this was a pretty good one. And it was a female villain as well, which I thought was good because like sometimes it's easy for like to. And I say this as a guy, like when you have a female lead who's the hero, it's like let's make a man the villain because let's trash on men. Like I thought it was good to have a female villain. Uh, yeah, and also because just there's a bit more, I don't know, connection, I guess, and that's the wrong word, between the heroes and the villain, like in terms of they understand each other because they're all women, right? Does that make sense? Uh, but it's just, and also there's not many female villains in comic book movies as well. We don't get them very often, so it's nice. It was a nice change,
Hmm.
actually. Yeah. So, what did you think of that? Like, I mean, having a female villain in a superhero movie, just generally.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting way to provide a foil to Carol, and we can talk more about this later. I might bring it up again, but talking about Carol's drivers and motivations and how she
Mm,
fails at things really has the opposite. Darbin is the name of this villain that's
that's
from
right.
the
Yeah.
Kree, and she really thinks she's doing the right thing. And so you have two competing worldviews. Is one is I am sacrificing everything for these people that I should have taken care of, who are not my people, but they deserve to be protected and they have done nothing wrong. Versus you have the other side saying, I am going to take as much as I can to help my people who genuinely are suffering, but that empire way of thinking, that colonizer way of thinking of everything
Mm,
in the world is at my disposal and other people are lucky if I show them a smidge of empathy because me and my people are what's important and I have to protect my own. So I think that's a competing worldview that we see currently playing out in our actual world, and
mm,
I just
yeah.
hope that more and more of us can take the side of Carol and the Marvels in this and see other people, whether they're our responsibility because we have harmed them, or whether it's our responsibility simply because they are good people who are in connection with us and we can
Yeah.
they do not deserve this suffering that is being handed to them, or even some of them that do maybe have been part of empire, but it is
Yeah.
all for the benefit of the common good, that we are
Yeah.
working and sacrificing and doing what we can to make the world a better place versus stealing from other people and taking everything we can for our own
Yeah.
hoarding and our benefit.
That's very, very timely given what happened this week. We are recording on the 9th of November, by the way. So things have happened in the last week which have been quite historic. We're not going to talk about those things, but we think you probably know what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but you're right, and I'm always fascinated by villains because I don't like this. This is kind of people put it in this binary of good and bad, but actually, the most interesting villains are the ones who most villains, in fact, start out with good intentions. Right? They're not bad people inherently. They start out with good intentions, or they've just been traumatized and never fully healed from their trauma. Like Loki is an example of that. And we saw the difference between the Loki that didn't heal from his trauma and the Loki that did heal from his trauma in the Loki show, right? Because Loki ends up becoming a hero. Um, whereas without the healing, he was a villain, but he was a villain because of what happened to him, not because he was initially a bad person. And maybe it's the same here. That there's villains are really interesting characters because they're all very complex, and there's like when a villain is done really well, it's really interesting. And I think this character, like you say, is really she's trying to protect her homeworld. She's doing what she thinks is right.
Mm-hmm.
She's not setting out to be evil or malicious or whatever. She's doing what she thinks is right to protect her people, which you can understand even if you don't agree with how she's doing it, or the kind of methods that she's using or how she's treating people. You can understand the motivation of somebody wanting to protect their people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
and
and an interesting counter to that is she? Is she doing it out of the goodness of her heart to protect her own people? Maybe. But Carol also calls her bluff several times and says, this is a trap. This was never out of kindness. This was always a ruse to gain power selfishly. She
yeah,
wants
and
to be
that's
the
another
savior of her
interesting.
people
Yeah,
so that she can consolidate power about being their new supreme leader. We can talk about that too, but as far as like, if you go and take down an evil system, you got to have some forethought into that. You can't just go and smash
yeah,
things up, but having in place the system that will replace this of what is the stability or the democracy or the, if you're
yeah.
going to go tear down the system, then that opens the door for a worse or more evil leader to kind of come in and rise up. And
Um,
anyone who has
yeah.
that in them is going to take advantage of that opportunity to sound like they are for the benefit of their people and their savior. And
It's
actually, they are doing the opposite. They're consolidating power.
exactly, yeah, and that says very much like Russia, and the Soviet Union. What happened there? They brought down the Soviet Union, but they didn't have anything really, any structure in place to replace it. And what happens eventually is we get, you know, uh, a kind of elected dictatorship under a tyrannical leader who's been in power for I don't know 20 years now. Because he took advantage of that, and also in the language that he uses a lot is national pride, and we're Russia, and we're whatever. I'm trying not to say names here because I don't want to give people that I just don't want to do that. So, but yeah, you know who we're talking about, and you're right. It's easy to use that language to persuade people to be on your side, and that, oh yes, I'm doing this for my country, I'm doing this for my people, and actually you're just doing it for yourself. So yeah, you're right. That's a very good point, and there's an argument that could be made for that in this case. And you're right, Carol does call that out. She really does. So yeah, but well, there's some of the themes that we wanted to talk about today were there's a lot of different themes that we wanted to cover today. So I'm really interested to explore some of these. The first one is deconstruction, and of course we talk about deconstruction a lot on this podcast. But and this is largely about Carol herself. And so just explain that to us a little bit and your thoughts on that, Jenna.
Yeah, I think we really have to go back to the first movie to understand Carol's story arc in the Marvels a little bit. So she starts off as this, she has to really deconstruct a lot of her beliefs, which I think a lot of listeners, if you're here on this podcast and it resonates with you, you've probably been through this too. When we meet her, she's fully convinced she's a noble warrior hero. We've probably had the evangelical savior complex in our own lives. She's fighting for good and for the empire and the people she's been taught to view as the enemy are actually refugees. These are actually colonized people. These are not these sneaky, shape shifting, aliens. We see the word alien used a lot in current rhetoric, but this means like actual aliens. She has to
Hmm.
learn, she unlearns everything she has to know about herself. She doesn't know who she is, and she knows to some extent that she's missing something, but she doesn't even know that she's not Kree. Like she has to identify as a human with origins on Earth, that this failing creature that is falling into the dirt over and over again, unlearning the indoctrination of the Empire as someone who's special and powerful. And it sounds really sci-fi when we talk about it like that, but it's what each of
Hmm.
us have to do as we unlearn the ways that religions and governments and making people great again or whatever have been used to manipulate us into serving
Hmm.
something completely contradictory to our stated shared values. So we have an example of how this is done in Carol. We can see how she does it. But that's just one reason that people benefiting from the Empire probably hated this movie so much. Because it shows a lot
Yes,
about how to deconstruct the manipulation and brainwashing that is going on in our current empire.
exactly. Yeah, and I did see a lot of the feedback on social media about this movie, and yeah, you're absolutely right. There was a lot of resistance to it, uh, and of course, America is quite a patriarchal country, unfortunately, and it's probably not a surprise that a movie headed by three female leads, three female superheroes, which does exactly what you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
probably gets hammered by a lot of people because they just think, well, women getting empowerment, women getting free, women deconstructing everything and finding themselves. Oh, we don't want that, yeah. But you're right. That is actually absolutely a theme in the movie, and like you right the first time you meet Cal in the movie, she's kind of doing that work. She's wearing this device which allows her to go back into her memories and like see who she was and try to figure it out, and try to
Mm-hmm.
like this is who I was, but I don't yet feel a connection to that, right? And she's trying to figure that out for a lot of the movie, and of course meeting Captain Rambo again, like that kind of brings all that stuff up because there are reasons that she left and that she said she would come back and she didn't come back, and there's all of that. That's really interesting as well. So there's a whole, yeah, that's a really really powerful theme in the movie. It's just like who are we, and who are we outside of the system that shaped us,
Mm-hmm.
which or the systems that shaped us, which is again really really relevant for the world we're living in right now, especially in America. Because more and more people are deconstructing and becoming anti-capitalist and realizing that the system is set up against them, and evangelical Christianity and capitalism, like and the harm that they do and how those systems are set up. And more people are realizing that, and it affects women a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And women are people that are one of the groups that suffer the most under those systems, and they shouldn't, obviously, and yeah. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely, that's a really powerful theme. Excuse me. Uh, the next thing you wanted to talk about, I think, and which I absolutely agree with. I love this theme actually because it's something I found in my own life. Found family, and found family is something that doesn't get talked about much, but it should get talked about more. I've definitely got a found family as well as a birth family. I've got a healthy relationship with my birth family, but I've got a found family as well. I've got and those things are important. So just talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so those are connected thoughts, that it's like what gets you out of the brainwashing or the empirical thinking or the colonizer mind. And it's that when we start to deconstruct this, you're unraveling your faith or you're kind of questioning the authority and the systems that you've been raised in, or your supreme intelligence is the character in the first movie. And so it's like having these things that have told you who you are, a mentor, a teacher, a coach, and then you're starting to question those, is what brings you back to that question. And so Carol saying, I don't know who I am, I'm going to go seek this Maria Rambo person, and maybe she can kind of explain and fill in some dots, is that's crucially what this is it's not an alien technology that brings her back to herself, but this found family in the Rambos, and then again with Monica in the second movie. And she seems so confident at first. But then her faith is shaken, her doubts turn to disavowing her leaders and her cause. Some of us have been there and done that. She lets her tears show and her anger and her heartache. And you see this emotion carrying through the themes of these movies is uncertainty can shake even the most courageous pilot or the superpowered warrior. And it's the support of our
Mm.
friends and our chosen family who are the ones who bring us back to our true selves. We can't do this alone. Carol is powerful enough to redirect and then fly right through exploding nuclear warheads. Marvel movie stuff. But even she needs friends to accomplish all she has to do. Like she's so powerful that she can do all these
Yeah.
superhuman, sci-fi movie, superhero comic book movie things. But like even she is not powerful enough to do this by herself. And throughout her story, we see that she again has to rely on these other people in her life to keep calling her back to who she is and teach her how to love and what family is and what community looks like.
Mm. Yeah, and in a sense, in this movie, they kind of find these three people find each other, and
Mhm.
they have loads in common. They all have similar powers, and I mean, they're kind of for a lot of the movie they're actually connected. So when they use their powers, they switch positions, right? So there's a big connection there, and also, of course, they're all women, and so they kind of over the movie they kind of bond, and by the end of the movie they're kind of Carol's kind of almost adopting a not a an kind of not a mother because Kamala's already got a mother, but she's like an auntie,
Mhm.
to Kamala, which she was for Captain Rambo, but never got to be, right? And never got to do that, And there's a lovely scene with Carol and Kamala at the end of the movie, and when they're sitting in the plane just talking, which is really cool, and I love that. And like he finds that they find another family, and a new family moves into that home at the end of the movie. That the Rambo's house. Kamala's family moves in there, and you actually spend a lot of time with her family, relatively speaking, in the movie. So you get to know them a little bit, if you've not seen the show. Uh, and yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the importance of we can't get through any difficult period of our lives without community. We need healthy community,
Mhm.
and that's not just our birth family. It might not be our birth family at all with some people, unfortunately, But even if you have got healthy birth family relationships, you need other community to get you through and to support you and be accountable and I mean, especially right now, this week is we've seen a lot of that this week. People texting each other, messaging each other, just messages of support, be reaching out to each other because of the shock of what's happened, right? And we've seen that in action this week and how important that is. And one of my wishes is that we can continue that going forward, and it's not just this week that we can keep those relationships and connections going and
Mhm.
keep them harmonious. No, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I do think there is an interesting counterbalance to this because a lot of us, and maybe a certain part of the Enneagram, okay, everybody check your bingo card off. Jenna mentioned the Enneagram on James's podcast. But,
Every
there's a
time.
certain type of personality that is going to say, oh, we need community. Like, I am now supposed to go save everybody. Now, I am supposed to be the one
Yes.
that, like, has to rely, or the other is like, well, if I'm not doing the right thing, it's other people's job to come in and be my caretaker. And there is an important part of community, but there is also an important part of self-determination. And so right before this epic climax of Captain Marvel, and she's lighting up and on fire and all these in her binary state, there's an iconic scene where the artificial intelligence shows her scenes from her childhood and her young adult years. And she remembers rising again each time. No one is helping her up. No dad is there being like, okay, honey, you can do it again. Like she has to have that within herself, fully human, is that
Mm,
she is falling and falling and falling. But the enemy can't contain her power, not even like with a little device on her neck, once she frees herself. So she's like, what happens if I stop fighting with one hand tied behind my back? I'm trying so hard to conform to this society that says I have to put down my emotions as a woman. I need to learn to fight without my powers, without my emotions. But what
mm,
happens if I don't have to do that? I can be my full authentic self without everybody else telling me who I have to be. And the AI says she was reborn thanks to the Kree alien science, but it's in reclaiming her true identity, her original identity, not who her born again leader said she should be, that she finds the power she's had all along. And so I think there's a lot of deconstruction in that, is whether you're born again through a religion or through like joining a political movement or, becoming a social justice warrior or whatever, like people are going to try to tell you who you are. And they'll try to tell you like so that they can control you, what your weaknesses are and everything. And actually, sometimes those are our strengths and we have to have it within ourselves individually, um, to find what was given to us not by the empire but by doing something dangerously heroic to save our lives is actually the best thing we can do, is stepping out on our own. And in Carol's act, she's actually doing something so heroic to save the lives of many others when she blows up the engine that gives her her light powers so that the empire would not kill these people. And it's in those moments of true connection with who we actually are and alignment with our values that we can metaphorically snap off the inhibitor that's around us and learn
Mm,
to live in our own power, regardless of what all the voices around us are telling us we should be or should do, or all the shoulds in our lives that come from external voices. And sometimes you have to listen to just standing on your own, knowing that you are enough inside and no one else gets to determine your worth or your power, just you.
absolutely, absolutely. And that's the thing about superhero movies as well. It's not the best for the best ones. It's not about them using their powers to save the day. That's almost like after the big victory in the hero moment in a lot of these movies is a personal one, right? Uh, like uh, like it's not like in the first Superman movie, which is one of my favorite movies ever. The hero moment is like when it's not him turning the world back, which is the big set piece thing that he does. It's when he gets back from that and he sees Lois and she's alive, and he has this little look. He has this kind of nerdy like happiness
Mm-hmm.
that he's managed to save her because he couldn't save his dad.
Mm-hmm.
Right, his dad died of a heart attack and he couldn't save him, his Earth dad. And then he just sighs and looks down and like almost like satisfied to himself, like I did it, like you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's not, and then he just looks, just kind of stands behind her and lets her talk. And he's like, he's just happy that he did that, like he saved her.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about saving the world. Obviously, that's a big thing and that's huge, and he does that, and that's really amazing. But the heart of the movie that is that moment, where he saved her. He saved somebody he loved when he couldn't save
Mm-hmm.
somebody he loved earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, so exactly, it's that kind of thing where these big movies. Yeah, it's great to watch all the big set pieces and all of them using their powers, and that's awesome, and we love those things. But it means more when it's about the personal journey,
Yeah.
and
And
we
I,
have
I
that in this.
think,
And we have that in this movie. And that's exactly what
yeah,
happens in this movie.
I do think when we say powers, like it's easy in the context of this to think like shooty powers or
Yeah,
like laser
yeah,
eyes or flying or something like that. And I
yeah.
think we need to also reclaim the power within ourselves and how we steward the responsibility. So the famous, Spider-Man quote is Teddy
Great power,
Roosevelt.
great responsibility. Yeah,
It's like great power comes great responsibility. And it's like, but that's not just for Spider-Man. That is for all of us. And we have hurt people. We have made choices or, maybe with Superman, like abstaining from using our power when we should have stepped up and should have used it, or maybe using our powers in ways that ended up being destructive. And so my power isn't
mm,
necessarily like invisibility or flying or laser eyes or fire hands or something like that, but how I have used my words and my actions and my money and who I showed up for and defended versus who I said, this is not my people, this is not my problem. And so I think that we have to take in the word power and filter it through our comic book brain and instead say like, oh, actually I
absolutely.
do have
Yeah,
power and I may not be able to do like superhuman feats of strength or something, but like I can use my time and my money and my energy and my presence and support the things that I actually love and want to see thrive, and not just watch from the sidelines criticizing.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And that's why these movies. That's why superheroes are so. I always think they're so relevant to us. Like, and yeah, we connect with their stories because they remind us a little bit of ourselves. Uh,
Yeah.
Obviously not in the powers that they have, but in terms of what they do with the gifts that they have
Yeah.
in their personal
Well, and I
journey.
have I've been thinking about this too, that like even when she can fly in space on her own rocket power, like she can still get it wrong. So like we keep thinking like, oh, if I just accumulate power, if I'm just smarter, if I'm just stronger, if I'm just,
Yeah.
whatever, hotter or sexier or whatever. Um, but like they can still get under in their own heads. Like you can still make promises you can't keep. Like you can still commit to too much. And Carol is driven by this deep sense of justice that I think a lot of us
Yes.
feel, like especially neurodivergent people. That is a marker of
Mm,
neurodivergence.
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
check your bingo card off. Jenna mentioned neurodivergence on James's podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'm
um,
neurodivergent too, so like it's a yeah, it gets mentioned a lot here.
Right. And even from her childhood onto being an adult and trying to find a home for these scrolls, these former enemies that she helped oppress, is these repentance and repair and reparations can be a lot harder to do when you're trying to take down an entire system of injustice yourself in one swoop, instead of building that. And we have to understand how the oppressive system operates. So even if we succeed at ending them, we don't create something worse. So she destroys the supreme intelligence, but then that sets off the civil war that like now their entire planet doesn't have the natural resources it needed. And she promises to find a home for these people, but she shows up on this planet that they were refugees on, and it makes the Kree even more mad. The enemies are now violent and destroying things without giving people even like the little tiny bit of compassion they were showing. And so it's just hard because you can try to do the right thing over and over and over and it can backfire. But even if it was a trap, like even if it was never going to work out, like she fails. And she only managed to save some of these people with the help of her superpower friends and her friend Valkyrie. And I think that's really important with Valkyrie's quote about you can stand tall without standing alone. And so even when we're
Absolutely.
noticing
Yeah.
like there was a book that was real popular about 10 years ago called When Helping Hurts. And so it's like
I remember
asking
that
the
book.
people what they needed. Like, had she radioed into the scrolls and said, "Hey, can I show up? Is this going to be appropriate? Is this what you need from me? Can I help you in any way?" Instead of just coming in and trying to save them. So we have to rely on these networks that we build across cultures and social circles and abilities if we're going to be any good to anyone else. And she intends to do good, but she jumps in and makes these costly mistakes, saying she'll bring freedom and safety for both those she harmed and the oppressors she recognized as also imprisoned. But then she sets off events that lead to this foil, this calculating villain who takes without empathy for other people. And so it's like,
Mm,
yeah, you have to like actually like go to Hala and say, "Hey, here's what I'm doing." And Darben is like, "Oh yeah, well Carol said she's going to bring freedom, but she actually brought destruction." It's like had she worked with the Kree people to say, "How are we going to redo this? We have, like, yes, we destroyed this supreme intelligence. Here's what's going on now," instead of just flying in, saving the day, and then being like, "Oh no." Bad things have happened here. And I see that so much with people who have intended to do good, but have gone into situations, say, in more impoverished country or city or environment or culture, and they think that they are providing something of value, but they've never actually communicated with the people on the ground or the leadership doing the work already or whatever. So I think there's going to be a big call in the next years, a couple of years coming up, to do like aid and helping out people and things. And it's like, but you have to actually make it mutual aid. Like it has to actually be with the consent and the wisdom and the intelligence of
yes.
what is going to work for this community. And sometimes that really sucks because what they choose is not actually for their own benefit or what is what is maybe by research standards what would actually help, but it has to be with the investment of the people you are trying to help. Because if you go in and say, "Hey scrolls, like I'm going to come free you," or "I'm going to be a spy among this council that you're going to meet," you could actually put their lives in danger. So
Yeah.
I think that's
And
something
yeah.
important for us to learn if we have like this, especially like a white evangelical savior complex, but any evangelical savior complex, is you've got to like chill out a little bit and do some like less impulsive like planning and strategizing and networking and bringing in your resources and your networks like Valkyrie. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting lesson from this one
Yeah,
that
no, it is. Yeah, you're
I
right.
want to talk
Absolutely. And it's important not to have that kind of imperial colonizing mindset when you're trying to help people, and especially you're trying to help minority groups or, you know, people in different parts of the world, different cultures, whatever, like that you go in there with a collaborative perspective, not a colonizing perspective. Like, as in, we want to work with you in ways that help you, and we want to understand your needs and what, like, how you work, and support that, rather than just coming here and tell you what to do. Like,
Hmm.
which is what's happened in the past. So yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, one of the other things that you wanted to talk about is something quite personal to you as well. Something about letting go of the past and grieving who we've been and where we've come from. And so, just tell
Yeah.
us a bit about that and how it's personal for you.
Well, and I think that talking about the past, it really emphasized. I was having a conversation in my book club this morning about, like how the ways that our early influences kind of got into our heads and our memories and things. And we had this conversation that was like, but for those of us who are neurodivergent or who've been through trauma or, even deep grief, sometimes those memories are erased. And maybe they're not like amnesia like Carol experienced, but, Carol is still recovering from this trauma of having her memories and her identity stolen. There's parts of her past she'll never get back decades later. I don't know about you, James, but like for me, that like really hits my heart. It's like that's a very real grief for me. That's like there were things that happened to me, or things that I have done, or just situations and contexts that I was in with no one's fault to blame, that I will never get back those years. And that is a
Mm,
deep thing we have to grieve. It maybe not be a loss of a person as far as death goes, but like you can grieve things that are not a literal death of a person. They can be a death of yourself, a death of things
absolutely.
that you can never get back. And so this neurobiology of trauma literally does erase memories. Like you do have a worse memory the more trauma you've been through, but in the sense that we can't go back and have a different experience from this life that was stolen. It was manipulated. It was used. It was taken from us. And no matter how much we rage against this system and this empire that did it to us, um, like you're never going to get that back. And so I just relate to this so much from my 20s, especially like even it's not actual amnesia. Like I didn't actually hit my head and do anything. Like no aliens mess with my brain, but like the mental illness being dismissed as a spiritual desert season. Everybody in the audience, raise your hand if you've been through that. You just need to try harder. You just need to do
Mm,
more. And it looked like, meanwhile, mental illness and anxiety, depression, grief, deconstruction, trauma, like all of that is deeply within our brains. And we needed help. We needed medication. We needed therapy. We needed actual treatment and recognition of the trauma to kind of unravel some of that rather than being told like repress, repress, spiritual bypassing, like God's good, like all things happen for a reason, or like the look on the bright side, all these sort of things that like those are like not helping the mental illness or the trauma or the PTSD. They're just
mm.
keeping it down, and that helps that dissociation almost to take over. And so I think to reconnect with our past and reconnect to who we are and our real identities, it takes a lot of that healing from the neurobiology of trauma to maybe we'll never get back those years, but like we can get back today and we can function more healthily today so that we don't have more regret in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, this resonates a lot with me. I mean, I've just moved house,
Hmm.
and the biggest thing that I did recently was I had a storage unit which had stuff from my entire life up till now, from childhood, from when I was a Christian and like really like but an evangelical Christian kind of more, and had all those old books that everyone used to buy, and they were all in boxes and just like my entire old life. And I'd been trying to get rid of it for years and I never could. And it was because I couldn't let go of it. Something in my head couldn't let go of it. And then I just let go of it. And someone took it away. It's all gone. I didn't even stay to when it was all gone. I just let them take it all away. And there was a grieving for that. That is a big that's a lot of my life. That's half of my life, of what hopefully what will eventually be my life anyway. Uh, it's a yeah, it's a lot of things that I'm never going to see again, and a lot of them I'd forgotten about,
Hmm.
but a lot of them were probably still in me somewhere, and letting go of them was it was a grieving, even though I knew it was the right thing, and even though I felt better afterwards eventually. There was that, I had to let go, that part of my life is over, and I'm never getting that back. I
Mhm.
can't go back in time. But I'm here now, and I've got lots of good things happening now. So I've got a new life, but then I've got to think. Then I'm going to that point of, oh, I've got to figure out who I am now. Like, who am I now? That's the like now I have nothing else but who I am now, and so, which again is connecting with this movie. It's very much Carol's journey. Like, who am I now? I've had all this stuff in the past that's happened to me, and I acknowledge that, but I'm not that person anymore. So who am I now? And that's, yeah. So absolutely resonant with me. That
Well,
element of the movie.
yeah, and I think, like, as we're deconstructing, like, there's so much, like, it's not linear, right? And so a
Absolutely.
lot of this, like, so it's deeply embedded in your brain, even if you've forgotten the actual teaching or who said it or the book or whatever. It's like, oh, I don't even remember hearing that podcast or whatever. But it's interesting because, so in Captain Marvel, Carol is telling Jan Rog, like, I have nothing to prove to you. Like, she's overcoming this patriarchy, and she doesn't have to control her emotions, her anger, her joy, her confidence, resilience. They give her strength, and she's like, yeah, I can do this. And that's really cool for the end of that movie. But then we're coming back so many decades later, and that is slipping a bit in Space Alone. So, like, I'm sure if she were to come face to face with Young Runner again, she would say, like, I don't have anything to prove to you. Like, I'm done. But in the Marvels, it's Monica, her chosen niece, like all grown up, that finally gets through to her that she never had to earn her way back home. She didn't have to prove anything to Monica. She never had to earn Monica's love. Monica just wanted her as an aunt, not as this like justice warrior hero. She just wanted the simply fully human, imperfect person Carol was, with or without powers. And so I think sometimes we come out of these toxic systems and we want to like burn it all down fast as possible. It's all done. And we end up making things worse. We've talked about that with our wisdom and discernment, but we also have internalized these things that, oh, we have to like make these promises that we can't deliver on it. And then we find
Mm,
ourselves branded with these names that aren't accurate or don't reflect our intentions. Like, you're just the whatever girl. And it's like, we do our best and we hope and we earn our place and worth. But what we really needed is what we've always had. We've always had it all along, is that love that doesn't, and poet Mary Oliver's words, require us to crawl through the desert on our knees repenting. It's like that love that is, it doesn't need you to beg for it. It doesn't need you to accomplish anything. You don't have to like
mm,
check off the to-do list in order to earn your way back in. And so we do need to learn to do better, obviously. We need to make right what we've wronged and live into our full emotions and all of these things that we're learning from this, and escape that colonizer way of thinking. But healing comes through accepting and letting ourselves be loved too. So we don't have to earn our place in a true family. We just fight together side by side and we make things right and we do what we can, even if it comes at a great personal cost. But we've got that love that grounds us, and doesn't have to be the hustle culture, which is still part of the colonizer mentality. Is that this American empire, especially, and I'm sure over there in the UK at some point too, is that like there's this, you have to earn your way into belonging. You have to like get this, this sense of accomplishment to like have your ally status or your good person status or your deconstructed status, and really having that self love, and then also having the love of people around us. That's the path to healing. Not necessarily like building a resume of look at all of the good things I have done.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, that's right. We can't, we can't, you know, we can't earn love. It's just there, and sometimes sometimes it is hard to receive love. Like, when you don't love yourself. I've struggled with this a lot, not loving myself well enough. And, one of the things being married has helped me with is actually that, yeah, that, my wife is on my side. I don't have to prove myself to her.
Mm.
She just loves me, even with all that. She's seen the worst of me and the best of me, and she still loves me exactly the same. Right. And I don't have to earn that love. And we often feel like we have got to earn, like because of this capitalist system that we live in. Everything is earned, value, love, everything is earned, but love doesn't isn't earned. Like love is given, uh,
Mhm.
and yeah, absolutely. And that kind of brings us to the next point we wanted to talk about, which is about like that light always has to drive out darkness.
Mhm.
The only way to overcome evil is through the light,
Mhm.
and that hate can't drive out hate. It's like, tell us a bit about your experience of that in the movie.
Yeah, I think it is really important that Monica is the one who comes up with this plan and believes in Carol to repower Hala's son. So they've got the enemies down. She's gonna die, and Carol's like, I don't know what I can do about this. And Monica's like, actually, you have a lot of power. You could go instead of stealing the sun that belongs to Earth. Carol herself has the ability to go do this. And Carol's like, oh, I didn't think I could do that. Like, that sounds really like a huge deal. I don't know if I can do that. And Monica's wisdom and her heart are both needed. Her head and her heart, her emotions and her intelligence are needed for Carol to be able to do it. So that's part of that interdependence and part of that emotions and thinking. But then, of course, after that promise, Darben tricks her and gets the powerful Bengal thing, proving again Carol's instinct was correct. Do not trust the enemy. Um, but what's more important is that Carol is moved by compassion, even if it's taken
Mm,
advantage of, even if it's wrong, even if she knows it's a trap. Sometimes we're going to try to reconcile with people and to help them fighting against us over and over. They prove themselves to be exactly who we thought they were. We're not getting through. We're talking to a brick wall. But the part that matters is our reaction, that we don't become cruel in response. We do not become bullies to our bullies. We're continually growing in spite of every reason to become the poison that tries to take us down, but we don't let it change us to the core. So, to paraphrase Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it's like only light can overcome the evil in our world. We have to do that work. So, light, not like the Marvel's light based powers, of course. They do all have light based superpowers, but the light in them that helps them become better together, to seek hope and sacrifice and to take risks for the good of others who don't have what we have, and learning to work together as a team. That light that is crucial in this world too, and the future we have coming. We can see a lot of dark times. We're very scared, but there is an empire we have to resist, and we have to be careful of how this next 4 years are going to shape us. Are they going to shape us into being Darben, of manipulating, hoarding power, taking from others so that our own people can thrive? Or are we going to be like Carol and Monica and Kamala, who, with the help of many others, defend other people, putting our own lives and reputations and pride on the line?
exactly.
That's the
It's never been more relevant, actually. That, and I see it. I see it in some people that, and I don't blame them actually. Like they're like, look, like we've trusted you time and time and time again to do the right thing, and you've let us down every single time. So we're giving up on you. We don't care about you anymore. We're not going to help you anymore. If you're in trouble, we're not going to help you. Like, and I get it. I get why people feel that way. I do. I mean, sometimes I feel that way, but like we have to be better than that. We have to. Otherwise, we're no better than them. Like we can't
Mhm.
lower yourself. We can't lower. We can't. I hate saying lower ourselves. We can't. We can't take up the arms of the enemy to use on the enemy. Right? We can't become people full of hate and anger and prejudice and stuff. Like. To overcome them. Otherwise, they've won. The
Mhm.
whole point is we have to overcome them with compassion and kindness and justice and uh, yeah, and inclusivity and forgiveness. And forgiveness does not mean there's no consequences for actions. By the way, you can have forgiveness and still someone has to face justice. That's absolutely right. Uh, but at the same time, yeah, we have to. And we have to show that. We have to show that in our actions, in our day to day lives, in the little choices that we make, in how we treat people. And that's not easy. Like I know people can talk about it. I think the reason people get upset is when people talk about it like it's easy, and it's not easy. It's
Mhm.
not easy at all. That's part of the fight. Part of the fight is with ourselves to keep being people of compassion.
Yeah.
And you know, and yeah, you're right. Cal doesn't actually do anything wrong. She does the right thing, you know, but it's thrown back in her face. And but she doesn't it doesn't stop her being a good person. In the sense she's shown who she is in that moment. That oh, she is a good person. She is a kind person. She does want to believe in people. She does want to give people a chance to redeem themselves, and that's a good quality. So there's nothing, even though it doesn't work out, she's still done the right thing in that instance, and that probably teaches her a lot about herself as well.
I think it's so crucial that like the forgiveness and repentance and repair process doesn't happen without accountability. Like in the same way that we would say there is no empathy without boundaries, they have to go hand in hand. We would also say that accountability is part of that. And it's believing in somebody's humanity enough, giving them enough that our integrity says our values are our values no matter who we're talking to. Like if somebody screams a slur at us, like our values are our values, we do not use slurs. And so like that's that's just part of the integrity process is holding people accountable for their actions, not just believing, oh, they're doing the best they can as far as like you are no better than a dog, so therefore I'm not going to expect to treat you, I'm expecting you to act like garbage, therefore you can't be any better than that. That's shame says it's an identity. But holding people accountable means like I believe you can do better and you are acting like someone you are not in alignment with your true identity with, like you have the ability to be a good person and you are choosing actively not to be, and that's really heartbreaking. But I think you see it with Monica watching, a lot of the criticism. Monica was originally introduced in the show WandaVision and got her powers from Wanda through walking through this witch hex, which talks about in the movie. But you don't have to see WandaVision. It explains all of that in this movie if you haven't. But a criticism of the end of WandaVision was that Wanda did not necessarily have that repair and accountability, that she felt bad about it and she was grieving, and we all empathize with that. But she does not stay in that town to make things better for them. She doesn't like stay and use her powers or even leave and use her powers to make things good for these people. Like,
Mm,
Carol in that situation would have been like, oh, I'm going to do everything now to make these people of Westview like the coolest people. They will never have problems again. I'm going to use my powers to make this better and to do what I can to,
mm,
make this whole world better. Whereas it wasn't really that with Monica. Like she's watching this woman get all of this, attention and grief. And that, I mean, she did really have grief, but it's hard to feel sad for that when it's like, okay, but you also enslaved an entire town. And so I think having the accountability, even if Carol didn't mean to do the wrong thing, she was just flawed as a person. Like she didn't, she was imperfect in her good intentions, but then holding that accountability. And I think that's really important that you can see these heroes and yourself as full people. So like when Carol is first reunited with Monica in this movie, as an adult, she says Monica's mother said that Monica went to space as her dream because she had something to prove. And that's something Carol relates to because Carol can understand doing cool stuff and powerful things to prove something to somebody, thinking that's going to be bonding them. But Monica brings her back to Earth and says, hi, what I wanted was my aunt. Like, I didn't necessarily need to go prove myself in space to you. I just needed you as a person to, be here for me. And so I think of all the people in our lives and the friends we didn't show up for because we thought we had to go earn our place and have to accomplish converting or organizing or being an example of leadership. And there's so much love, and that's what conquers the hate and the lies and the empire, not climbing ladders of social hierarchy, proving ourselves to be the heroes of the universe through our power and our accomplishments. And you see this, I think the most important part of the movie is there's a scene where they have Kamala has taken them out. Like Carol really wants to save these people on Aladdin, and she comes to this musical singing planet, which is hilarious. I love it so much. They're singing and they're dancing and
oh, I love
they
this.
have a
I
great
love
time.
that planet. It's
It's
so
so
cool.
fun. It's so good.
Took me completely
And
by
it's
surprise, and I was just
yes,
awesome. Like
it's
I love that
so
they just
cute.
communicate with singing, and like And when a guy talks like we talk, it's like, oh, he's bilingual, as in like
Yes.
talking and singing in two different languages. You know, it's like it's brilliant.
Yeah.
I just love the imagination behind that. It's so great.
Oh god, and bringing in Park Seo-yoon, that was just genius casting. He's a superstar in Asia, like K drama. He is like the
Right.
hottest actor out there, and
I
so to see
really
him like
wow.
water that swagger, he's got the crown thing on his neck, the outfit he has on, and he's just got that swagger of that prince. Like he just nails that part so well. But she goes and she asks for help. So unlike the scrolls where she didn't necessarily like come in and say, "Hey, what can I do here?" Like she comes and learns from her mistakes and goes to Aladdin and says, "Hey, Prince Yan, who I am technically married to for political reasons, um, what can we do here? Like, let me help you. And we have a plan, and we need to work with you to defend your planet." And when she fails at that because they can't use their powers because they're all entangled, then Kamala has to make a really difficult choice to go against her like idol. Like this whole time on Aladdin, she's like looking at Carol, being like, "Oh my gosh, she's amazing! Oh, Captain, my Captain, look at this wonderful." And Monica's like, "I am not
Yeah.
impressed. Like she is a headache and she's a pain in the ass."
Well, that's
Um,
hilarious, isn't it? Like, yeah, and yeah, Kamala's journey is really interesting as well because she goes from this at the start of the movie, she's like this fangirl and she's writing fan fiction and drawing all these great like. There's even an animated section of the movie at the start, which is really cool, and I just love her. Like I think she's wonderful. But at the end of the movie, she's kind of her own person, and she's like forging her own path and stuff. And obviously, she still loves Carol and respects her, and she's still a hero to her. But it's a different kind of relationship. It's not like she's not on a pedestal anymore. She's a person, you know. And
exactly.
it's
I really, yeah.
yeah. Go on. No, you yeah.
I was gonna say, so I think the most important part of this movie is so we've gotten through Aladna, they had this big battle with the big bad villain, and Kamal has to make this choice of like, no, we're getting out of here because you're gonna kill us and she's gonna get my power and we can't save them. And Carol's so mad because she's like, we just love them to defend for themselves. I'm never doing that again. I have to stay and fight to the death. And Kamal's like, there is something bigger going on here. But then it's just the three of them in this field that they have crash landed to on this planet. And they have to have this conversation between all three women.
Yeah.
And you see, Monica loves Carol the human and has to learn to see Captain Marvel the hero, and that her work was really important out there. And Kamala loves Captain Marvel the hero, and they have to learn to appreciate the aspects of that they were missing. So Monica sees what Carol had to do, the impossible choices she's had to make, and the enormous responsibility and reality of Carol's work, that she didn't just abandon Monica, but like there was a lot of important things going on up there. And Kamala learns to let Carol be a real human person, not just her idol. And she says so, especially she makes an apology and says exactly what she needs to, with no over explaining or reassurance that she didn't actually mean to. And the intent was blah, blah, blah. She says she needed to apologize. I have been putting you on a pedestal and I did not let you be a full human. And I'm sorry for that. And so, yes, they're literally entangled by their powers for the movie, but like they bond as a team emotionally in this movement.
Yeah.
This is the moment of the three of them just standing there having a conversation. And it's emotional honesty. And it's this great picture of how sometimes we have to be forced to work together in a messy social relationship on a team we don't really want to be on. And it's a difficult emotional experience because of our baggage and our past with those people.
Mm,
But through clear communication, they just stand there and have a conversation. It's like,
yeah.
how many movies would be so much better if the heroes actually just talked to each other and had sincere repentance and working through things together with accountability? And we can
Yes.
learn to trust each other and we love each other in ways that don't depend on deserving or accomplishments or perfection. And that's how we build true found family. That's how we build a winning team of heroes, is
Yes.
we let go
Yeah.
of people's expectations and stop putting those expectations on people. And,
Exactly. Yeah, and we see this in a lot of different places. We see it in, I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy is a great trilogy about a chosen family who are thrown together by circumstances,
yes,
don't really want to be with each other to start with, but end up being family. And and Doctor Who is a lot about that when he when he gathers his companions with him or her, that they become chosen family, and he has family all throughout time and space, and we both love Doctor Who, so we know all about that. But
yes. Yes, fill out your bingo cards. That's Jenna and James talk about Doctor Who. Bingo.
Yeah, that's always going to come up when we do a podcast together.
Every time.
Doctor Who, like, but yeah, like that's what we were talking about earlier with chosen family. That how important that is, and how beautiful it can be, and how it can be so unexpected sometimes. Like you say, like these two people are thrown together, and two of them have never met. Well, Kamala's never met either of them, and the other two haven't seen each other for decades.
Mm-hmm.
So so there's lots of things to work out, but they end up becoming almost like a chosen family in the end, don't they? And which makes part of the ending so sad. If not, it's a little bit interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The ending is very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And we've given a lot of spoilers away, so probably, we should have given a spoiler alert at the beginning of the episode, really. But I thought it was a really, really cool ending anyway. So
it's really good. Yeah.
Especially if you're an X-Men fan. So
Yes.
This has been great. I've really enjoyed this. It is a really good movie. It's really enjoyable, and like we've talked about, there's so many great themes at work, and character development and things that are relevant to how the world is right now, amazingly, and what's happened this week. There's so much there about all of these things. So thank you, Jenna, for all of
Sure.
this insight. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, and it's amazing you can have a movie with the Fleur kittens of the
Oh,
song from memory of Andrew
I
Lloyd
love
Webber's
that
musical Cats.
sequence so
The
much.
song is, I want to make sure everybody knows the song is from the musical
It's
Cats,
from
as they
Cats.
are trying
Yeah,
to
that's
literally
right.
herd the cats
Yeah,
into
that's
the
right. It's
station.
brilliant. That's why it's so great. And they're not actually cats, of course, but they look like
Right,
cats.
right.
But there's all these little on it. Oh, I just love that scene so much.
Let the
I
kittens
could just
eat
watch
you.
that over and over again. It's so good. Like, yeah. And then of course when they land and they let them all out and stuff.
Yes. And all these people in Central Park are like, what is happening here? Oh my
Yeah, there's all
gosh,
these
it's so
cats and they're
funny.
just like people coming out of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's
wonderful. Yeah.
yeah,
So if you've
wonderful.
not seen this movie yet, definitely give it a watch. It's on Disney Plus right now. You can watch it there. I'm definitely going to watch it again because of all these things that we've talked about. Just to re-watch it with all those things in my mind. Yeah, absolutely.
I
So
think there was a misconception when it came out that you have to see a million different things in order to understand it. You do not. Even if you have never seen anything else of Marvel, see Captain
yeah,
Marvel, and then you can watch the Marvels. And if you
100%.
really like it, you can go back and watch Miss Marvel. That explains, it's like 6 episodes that explain where Kamala comes from. And so, and if you really want that, you can watch
Yeah, and I need
WandaVision,
to do
but
that. I haven't
you don't have to.
seen that. Yeah, I haven't seen the, Miss Marvel yet, and I will watch it now. But I didn't need to have seen that to get the character and to make a connection with her. Like I loved her from the start. Like the first scene with her, I just, she's great. She's awesome. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of her. I hope we get to see more of her as
Mhm.
well. So absolutely. Check it out. And also, where can people follow you, Jenna?
Oh, yes. You can follow me on Twitter as Jenna _ DeWitt. You can follow me. I'm now on Blue Sky as well as Threads, mostly Threads. So, whatever. Just my name is Jenna DeWitt. And you can also follow my work at invisiblecakesociety.com, where I have queer resources, aromantic asexual resources, progressive Christian stuff on there, as well as a list of all of these podcasts that I have done on a variety of subjects, from Enneagram to Taylor Swift to faith deconstruction to fandom.
Yeah, and there'll be more of them for sure because you'll be back on this podcast again to talk about anything. Look, maybe we'll probably talk about Taylor Swift again. We might talk about Doctor Who again. There's a new Doctor Who coming up soon, actually, so we'll see about that. But and Jenna's just a friend of this podcast and a regular guest, so it's always great having you on, Jenna. So
Thank you.
thanks for listening, everybody, and take care.